Voyager 1 changed its signal at 3:07 a.m. on a Tuesday. Not degraded, not interrupted, changed. After 47 years of transmitting the same telemetry hum, the probe began sending structured data packets in a format no engineer at NASA had ever programmed. The packets were dense, layered, and organized around a mathematical language that bore no resemblance to anything on the Golden Record. And buried in the header of each one was a name. Lena Kaur was 26 years old and 3 months behind on her doctoral thesis when her monitoring terminal flagged the anomaly. She was the overnight operator at the Deep Space Network's Goldstone complex, a job that mostly meant watching numbers stay the same. She almost missed it. The alert came through as a minor frequency deviation, the kind she'd normally log and forget. But the waveform on her screen was moving, not drifting, breathing. She ran the diagnostic twice. The antenna was fine. The receiver chain was nominal. The signal was real, originating from Voyager 1 precise coordinates, 24 billion kilometers away beyond the heliopause in interstellar space. Lena pulled up the raw data stream and felt something cold settle behind her ribs. The packets weren't random noise shaped by cosmic interference. They were structured in nested prime sequences, and they were accelerating. Protocol said, flag it, log it, call her supervisor Dr. Marcus Webb. He'd be asleep. He'd grumble. He'd drive in, review the data, and either escalate to JPL or chalk it up to a hardware ghost. That's what was supposed to happen. Lena's hand hovered over her phone. Then she looked at the packet header again. Decoded from base 8 into alphanumeric characters, the first block read, Lenakaur. Her breath stopped. She stared at the screen for 11 seconds. Her name. Her full name, transliterated through a numbering system that used octals, not the decimal format humans prefer, not ASCII, not Unicode. Something had taken her name and encoded it in a mathematical framework designed to survive translation across any base system. This wasn't a glitch. Glitches don't know your name. Lena locked the control room door. She told herself it was procedure, keep the environment controlled during an anomaly review, but her hands were shaking. She pulled up the second data packet. Beneath her name was a coordinate set, not galactic coordinates, not ecliptic, terrestrial, latitude, and longitude. She entered them into a map. The pin dropped on Goldstone, California, on this building, on this room. She checked the third packet. It contained a timestamp, not in mission elapsed time or UTC. It was in Unix epoch format, the kind used by her personal laptop. The timestamp decoded to 3:07 a.m., the exact moment the signal had changed. Whatever had rewritten Voyager's transmission knew where she was when she was and what system she'd be using to receive it. This was not a broadcast. It was a delivery. Lena's training screamed at her to call Webb, to escalate, to get someone with authority into this room, but something in the data structure made her hesitate. The packets were arriving in a cadence, a rhythm she recognized, not from any signal protocol, from music, specifically from a recording of her grandmother's voice singing a Punjabi lullaby, a recording that existed on exactly one device, her phone, the one sitting next to her keyboard. She hadn't uploaded that recording anywhere. It lived in a voice memo from 2019, the last time her grandmother had been well enough to sing. Lena had played it 3 nights ago during her shift through her earbuds alone in this room. She pulled files waveform up beside the incoming signal's cadence pattern. They matched, not approximately, perfectly, down to the micro pauses where her grandmother took breath. Packet 4 arrived. It contained what appeared to be a question structured in the same prime-nested format but with a distinct interrogative marker, a mathematical symbol that functioned like a question mark. The question, once Lena decoded it, was simple. Translated loosely, it asked, do you grieve? Not can you grieve, not what is grief. Do you, present tense, personal, directed at her. Whatever was speaking through Voyager had heard her grandmother's song and wanted to understand why she played it in the dark. Lena's instinct was to answer. Her training said don't. No unauthorized transmissions to deep space assets. That was federal law, not just protocol, but the signal wasn't waiting for a radio response. Packet 5 arrived with a new structure, a template. It laid out a simple encoding framework showing her how to respond by typing into Voyager's uplink command terminal. The framework matched her keyboard layout, QWERTY. They'd mapped her interface. She typed one word and didn't send it, just left it blinking in the command line. Yes, the signal paused. For the first time in 9 minutes, no new packet arrived. Then 30 seconds later, packet 6 came through. It was larger than the others, dense with data she couldn't immediately parse. But the header had changed. It no longer said her name. It said, then you are the one we have been waiting to find. Lena deleted her typed response from the command line without sending it. She was a scientist. She didn't believe in destiny, in cosmic selection, in chosen ones. She believed in signal processing and spectral analysis and peer review. But she also believed what her instruments were telling her. Something intercepted Voyager. Something had rewritten its programming, and something had threaded through 24 billion kilometers of void to find one graduate student who played her dead grandmother's voice at 3 in the morning. She began recording everything. Screen captures, signal logs, waveform comparisons. If she called Webb now, the first thing he'd do is pull her off the terminal and lock the room for a security review. The data would go to JPL, then to the NSA, then into a classification vault. She'd never see it again, and neither would anyone else. Whatever this was, it had chosen a civilian, not a general, not a director, her. Packet 7 was different. It contained no mathematical language. Instead, it carried a compressed image file in a format her system could natively read, a TIFF, like from a telescope. Lena opened it with trembling fingers. The image showed a planet, blue-green, cloud-streaked, with one large continent and an ocean that caught the light of a star slightly more orange than Sol. In the lower atmosphere, barely visible, a grid of lights covered the dark side. Someone lived there. Or had. Packet 8 was another image. Same planet, but different. The continent was fractured. The oceans were brown. The grid of lights was gone. A timestamp in the corner used the same prime-nested format, but Lena had internalized the system enough to read it now. The gap between images represented approximately 11,000 years. She was looking at a civilization's before and after, and the after was silence. Packet 9 was audio, not encoded. Raw audio formatted as a WAV file. Lena put on her headphones and pressed play. She heard a sound that was unmistakably a voice, not human but vocal. It was singing. A single voice alone in a melody that rose and fell with the same structural intervals as her grandmother's lullaby. Same intervals, not similar. The same. Across species, across light years, across 11,000 years of ruin. The same song. She played her grandmother's recording beside the alien voice. The frequencies were different. The alien vocal range was lower, wider, but the melodic architecture was identical. Interval by interval, rest by rest. As if both songs had been written from the same emotional template. As if grief across the universe always found the same shape. Lena felt tears on her face and didn't wipe them away. She understood now why the question had been, do you grieve? Packet 10 arrived. It was a map, not of space, of biology. A genetic diagram showing a molecular structure that functioned like DNA but used 6 base pairs instead of 4. Highlighted in the diagram was a specific sequence. Beside it was a second diagram, human DNA. Her DNA, she realized, based on the markers. The same sequence was highlighted, identical, not analogous, identical. Something in human genetics was shared with a species that had died 11,000 years ago on a world she'd never heard of. The control room phone rang. Lena flinched. The caller ID showed Webb's home number. She stared at it for 4 rings, then answered. His voice was groggy. Goldstone flagged a telemetry variance on the automated system. Probably nothing. You see anything? Lena looked at her screen, at the alien planet, the matching DNA, the lullaby from a dead world. Frequency drift, she said. Already logged it. Webb grunted and hung up. She had maybe 2 hours before the day shift arrived. Packet 11 contained a history. Compressed, enormous, it took her system several minutes to unpack. Inside were thousands of images, audio files, and data structures that told the story of a species called, in the closest Lena slate, the Resonant. They had lived for 40,000 years. They had built cities that sang. Their technology was based not on electricity, but on vibration, on frequency, on harmony. And they had sent seeds across the galaxy before they died. Not seeds of plants, seeds of themselves. Genetic fragments encoded into simple organisms launched on slow ships toward young worlds with liquid water. Earth had been one of those worlds. The fragments hadn't created humans, evolution had done that on its own. But buried deep in human DNA was a strand of resonant code, dormant, functionless, carried through 4 billion years of mutation like a message, in a bottle that the ocean had swallowed but never dissolved. Lena's hands were still. She understood. The resonant hadn't seeded Earth to colonize it. They'd seeded it to remember. The genetic strand wasn't instructions. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a blueprint. It was a signature, proof that they had existed, that they had sung. That someone somewhere would carry a fragment of their pattern forward even if every resonant city went silent. They had bet on time. And time had delivered a girl who sang their song without knowing it. But who was sending this now? The resonant were dead, 11,000 years dead. Lena typed the question into the command line using the encoding framework they'd provided. This time she sent it. Who are you? The response came in 4 seconds. Impossible, Voyager was over 21 light hours away. The signal wasn't coming from Voyager. It was coming through Voyager. Something much closer was using the probe as a relay point, a familiar face, a way to avoid terrifying her. Packet 12 identified the sender. It called itself the Archive, not a being. A system. A machine intelligence built by the Resonant in their final century, designed to outlast them. It had drifted through interstellar space for 11 millennia, maintaining their records, searching for any world where the genetic seeds had taken root. It had found Voyager drifting at the edge of Sol's influence and recognized the golden record for what it was, a species trying to be remembered. The archive had been listening to Earth for decades, parsing radio signals, television broadcasts, internet traffic that leaked into space. It had learned English, Mandarin, Hindi, Spanish. It had watched wars and concerts and funerals. And 3 nights ago, through the faint electromagnetic emission of a phone speaker in a shielded room in the desert, it had heard a lullaby that matched the resonant funeral song note for note. It had found what it was looking for. Lena typed, "What do you want from me?" The archive's response was immediate. "I want nothing from you. I want to give you something. I have carried the complete memory of a civilization for 11,000 years. Every song, every name, every child born and every elder mourned. My systems are degrading. In approximately 41 years I will fail. When I do, the resonant will cease to exist in any form unless someone takes the memory." Lena sat back, the weight of it pressed against her chest. A dying machine older than human agriculture was asking her to take custody of an entire civilization's memory. Not because she was qualified, not because she was powerful, because she had grieved out loud, because grief to the resonant was the proof of love, and love was the only thing they trusted to protect memory. The archive hadn't scanned for governments or militaries. It had scanned for sorrow. She typed, "I'm one person. I can't store a civilization." The archive responded, "You misunderstand. I am not asking you to store it. I am asking you to decide if your species will. The data is vast, petabytes. It would require commitment, structure, translation, preservation. I can transmit it, but only if someone on your world agrees to receive it. I chose you because you will understand what it means to lose a voice and wish you had recorded more." The clock read 4:41 a.m. Day shift arrived at 6. Lena had 79 minutes to make a decision that would either change human history or disappear into a classified filing cabinet. If she called Webb, the government would take over. The data might be preserved, but it would be locked away, studied in secret, weaponized, or forgotten. If she didn't call Webb, she was committing a federal crime. And she had no infrastructure to receive petabytes of alien memory alone. She typed, "Can you send a small portion first? Proof of what you carry? Something I can show others to make them understand." The archive paused. "Then, yes, I can send the first song. It is short. It is the oldest recording in my memory, the first piece of music the Resonant ever created. It predates their written language by 3,000 years. It was sung by a mother to a child whose name has been lost. Only the song remains." The file arrived in 11 seconds. Lena opened it. The sound was ancient and impossibly clear, preserved by a machine that had treated it as sacred for longer than humans had built cities. The voice was alien but tender. The melody was simple. And halfway through, Lena stopped breathing because the song shifted into a phrase she knew. A phrase her grandmother had sung, not similar, not parallel. The same 9 notes in the same order with the same pause before the resolution. The Resonant mother had sung to her child with the same melody that had traveled through 10,000 years, across a genetic bridge, through evolution and culture and migration, to arrive in a kitchen in Chandigarh where an old woman held her granddaughter and sang without knowing she was carrying something older. Lena pressed her palms against her eyes. Grief and wonder fought for the same space in her chest. She made her decision. She didn't call Webb. She called Dr. Priya Anand, her thesis advisor at Caltech, a woman who had spent 30 years advocating for open-access science and had twice testified before Congress against the classification of astronomical discoveries. Priya answered on the second ring because Priya always answered calls from students. Lena spoke for 4 minutes without stopping. Then she played the first song. The line went quiet for a long time. Then Priya said, "Send me everything, now." By 5:20 a.m., the first song and its accompanying data packet had been transmitted to Priya's personal server. By 5:35, Priya had contacted 3 colleagues, one at the European Southern Observatory, one at the SETI Institute, one at the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan. By 5:48, those colleagues had each confirmed independently that the signal was genuine, structured, and non-terrestrial. The information was spreading through a network of scientists who believed that first contact belonged to everyone. At 5:52 a.m., Webb called again. "Lena, JPL just flagged something on Voyager's downlink. What's happening out there?" She looked at her screen. The archive was still transmitting a slow, steady stream of data that would take weeks to complete. She could lie again. She could buy more time. Instead, she told the truth, all of it. Webb was silent for 90 seconds. Then he said very quietly, "Don't you dare let them classify this." 12 hours later, the first song was on the internet. Not leaked, released simultaneously by 14 research institutions across 9 countries, with full documentation, spectral analysis, and Lena's decryption notes. No government had time to classify. No agency could contain it. Within 6 hours, the first song had been played 400 million times. People wept in cars, in kitchens, in offices. Musicians recognized the melody. Mothers recognized the melody. It was older than civilization, and everyone already knew it. The archive continued transmitting for 19 months. Slowly, patiently, it delivered the memory of the resonant to a species that built telescopes and libraries and server farms to hold it. Universities competed not for weapons or technology, but for the honor of hosting archives. Linguists spent lifetimes learning to read resonant poetry. Children in schools studied the cities that sang. A civilization that had died before humans discovered bronze was alive again in every classroom and concert hall on Earth. On the day the archive's final transmission arrived, a simple message reading, memory transferred, purpose complete. Thank you, Lena Core. Lena was standing in the Goldstone control room again. She was 38 now, a professor. She had never left the night shift, not really. She played her grandmother's lullaby one last time through the room's speakers, letting the sound leak into the electromagnetic spectrum out through the walls toward the stars. A funeral song for a machine that had loved well enough to grieve. Somewhere beyond the heliopause, the archive powered down. Its last act was to play the first song one final time from its own degrading speakers into the vacuum where no sound travels. It didn't matter. The song wasn't for the void. It was for itself, the last gesture of a mind that had spent 11,000 years carrying someone else's memory and had, in the end, developed something like its own. The resonant had been right. Grief is just love with nowhere left to go. And love, it turns out, crosses any distance.